Moshe. Yeah, Moshe. Is that the name? Moshe.
That's awesome. Oh.
Okay, guys.
No.
Long hair.
That's
What's
supposed to
that,
be
Moshe?
Moshe.
Well, they're both Moshe.
We're on air, guys.
Both Moshe? That's great.
Hello,
Super
everybody.
cool.
How do you know?
We're on air.
I totally.
On there, Mix.
Can you check the door
My
if somebody's at the
friend of
door?
mine was like, "What?
We're on air.
Oh,
You want to say hi to your mom?
hey, mom."
So it's Yud Shvat today. It's the outside of the Frierdiker Rebbe, second last Lubavitch Rebbe. I'm going to sing your Chabad again, okay? So today's the outside of the second last Lubavitch Rebbe of Yosef Yitzchak. You can see on YouTube, there's a piece by Reb Shlomo about a half an hour long where he's talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe. He tells an amazing story. And the more I find out about what it was like back then in Russia and communist Russia, it's the more amazing and the more unbelievable the whole story of the Frierdiker Rebbe is. You know, he's the one that pretty much was responsible for keeping Yiddishkeit alive throughout the communist era. You know, I think it was 1921 or 22, he brought in 10 Hasidim, had them take an oath that they were ready to do anything and everything and give their lives and the lives of their families to keep Judaism alive. And they organized a whole underground Jewish education network. They had people who would risk their lives to go and do kosher shechita, baking matzahs, and it was so bad that in Chabad they used to say if you didn't get caught and sent to Siberia once, you weren't really a chassid. Twice they already had status. 3 times you were showing up. You know? But people were killed, Hasidim were murdered, you know, by the KGB and so on. It was like it was and the man who taught me all of that, David Morozov, he was actually in the Russian army under the Tsar still, and his brother Chania was the one who had was in charge of organizing the entire underground network, and he was constantly on the run. He couldn't stay in any place. He couldn't stay anywhere more than one night because it was just they were looking for him all the time. I show them. I'm going to call you after my shiur, okay? Around 1:30. Okay, bye. And as a matter of fact, the rabbi at the Karlebach Shul in New York, Rabbi Sitrin, so his wife is from the Pinson family, and she told me that her back in Russia, one night Chanya Morozov came to their house, and he asked if he could stay over because and he said yeah, sure. And about half an hour later, the people from the KGB showed up, and he went to the door, and they said, "Are you Chanya?" So he said, "Yeah." Like he figured, like cover for his friend, and they didn't ask any questions. He was right in front of the family. They just shot him, And that was going on all like for years, and even in the '60s, Gedalia Fleer told me that he was involved in Soviet Jewry. So he used to travel to Uman and to Russia. And there was this Lubavitcher family that he used to visit. And one day they walked in the KGB and he just took their father and threw him out the window from a sixth floor window.
Mm.
Like, there was no such thing as going on trial and things like that. The Rebbe himself, the Yosef Yitzchak, was imprisoned and they beat him, they crippled him, and basically he was paralyzed, And when he came to America in 1940, so there were children of Hasidim who had left Russia already, and one of them comes up to him and he says, "Rebbe, in America you're not going to be able to do what you did in Russia." And his answer was, "America is no different." And Shlomo says that the first 4 weeks that he was in America, he was being welcomed by all the rabbis and everything. And after 4 or 5 weeks, there was such an anti-Lubavitch attitude. And what was it all about? Because he was planning to do something for the Jewish youth. He wasn't willing to accept the assimilation that was going on. And Shlomo says, Jewish kids were told, stay away from Lubavitch, stay away from Lubavitch. And Shlomo says at one of the gatherings, he says there were all of 12 people around the table with the Rebbe. It was like a motley crew, and today they're all over the world. Right? So the Rebbe speaks about it in the Sikha that his attitude was, we know why we're here, we know what we're supposed to be doing. I think that the door is open. It should be locked, by the way. It shouldn't be left open. But his attitude was, we know why we're here in the world, and you just have to keep going. You don't let anything stop you. You don't let anything stop you. A number of years ago, back, I think it was in 2000 or 2002, I was doing the Shabbaton somewhere in Colorado. There was a woman there from Miami, and she said, I would really like that if you come to Miami you do a Shabbaton at our shul. Anyway, a couple of years later, I was in Miami. So the rabbi of our synagogue, finally, he agreed to speak to me on the phone. So he says to me, so who are your teachers? I say, Lubavitch Rebbe and Reb Shlomo. So he says, I don't hold up either of them. So I said, Reb Yid, if you have any Jews in your shul today, it's thanks to these two people, And in any case, so Reb Shlomo says that that year Simchat Torah was the last time that he spoke to the Hasidim, and he spoke to them for about 8 hours, and then after that he couldn't talk anymore. And then Yud Shvat, it was the Shabbos morning that he passed away. But Friday before Shabbos, they distributed his last ma'amar, his last Hasidic discourse. And Shabbos morning, everybody was learning it, and people didn't know that it was at that time during that Shabbos morning that he passed away. They only found out after Shabbos. So I want to just to give you a sense of what it was like before a mimer was sung. You know, I mean, before the Rebbe would begin talking, so you should get a sense of it. Let's see where we're going to find this. Just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, this is, we're not going to watch this, it's in Yiddish. This is in Yiddish, but I want you to catch the singing. So this is a nigun that was always sung before the Rebbe would recite the Maimon. This is from 5735, like 1985.
Jesse Legania Resikalo, Doktor auf der Hemmscher. Von in dem Maimer und im Hemmscher von dem Haibule von Bal Haibule, Legani, Lignoni, Lemokim Scheuer, Ike Bitchilo. Sieger Schiene Betachten im Häuser. Keine Machete, Sieger Schiene gewinnt auf dem Matto, befragt in Ganeden. Aber die Chet von der Shiva, der ist unebendig von der Sadas. Es sind Saule gewinnt die Schiene mit Matto.
He never had notes in front of him. He would speak for hours, and in one talk he could be citing 200 sources in the Talmud and Zohar and everything. And he would keep a towel wrapped tight around his hand under the table to keep him anchored in this world. Oh yeah, it was out of this world. And so, and it's thanks to people like this that we're here, that we have a connection with Yiddishkeit and so on. It's unbelievable. Like people who just they knew what it's all about. So this particular mimer, which is very fascinating, that that here, as the Rebbe's soul is leaving back into the supernal world, you have all these thousands of Hasidim were sitting and studying his last teaching. I heard something, a similar thing that by some Hasidic group, at a wedding, when somebody in the Rebbe's family or whatever, or maybe for everybody when they would be getting married, so when the Chos and Kala would finally leave the wedding, to go to their new home, so the Hasidim would stay and sing some special nigunim during that time that Chosin and Kala were going to be together the first time, So it's a whole world of consciousness and bringing down, the holy consciousness and energy at special moments in time, In any case, so what is this Maimer Bossi Vigani all about? And by the way, Reb Shlomo was a chassid of Reb Shlomo and his brother Eli Chaim were chassidim of the Frierdiker Rebbe. They had met him in childhood, back in Europe. And so Reb Shlomo explains that Bati Legani, I've come to my garden, is a verse in Shir Hashirim. Achoti Kala, my sister, my bride. And what it's about is I've come back to my meeting place. And he explains it as follows. Like, let's say, you walk in the street and you meet lots of people, and then you meet one person that, you really connect. And then every time that you walk past that place, you remember, oh, this is the place where we met. This is the place where we connected. But sometimes, tragically, you're there and the person that you connected with is not there. Sometimes they're there and you're not there, right? And so he explains that what was the whole point of the creation of the world? So the Zohar says that God wanted to have a dwelling place in the lowest of all worlds. This is the lowest of all worlds. Okay? This world is called the world of division, the world of separation. This world is called the world of lies. It's the world in which people can deny that they're alive because the Creator created them, And originally, when God created the world, it was the Garden of Eden. and the Shechina was present, the divine presence was present here in the world, but then we made the golden calf, and then there were other problems. I'm sorry, then we ate from the tree of knowledge, and then there was idolatry, etc. And each time that man was messing up, the Shechina ascended to a higher world further away from us. Until when Moshe Rabbeinu came and we got the Torah, it came back down. Now, it's explained in Chassidus that getting back to the place of union, to the meeting place, is not just getting back to the way it was, but rather it's even going to a higher place than we had experienced originally. So the question is, how do we accomplish that in this world? And that's basically what all of the Torah is about, what all of Chassidut is about. How do you live in this world in such a way that not only do you regain what was lost, but to actually go even higher. So that's what that mimer is all about. And for the next 40 years, that mimer has 20 chapters, and for the next 40 years, the Lubavitcher Rebbe spent giving a mimer on each of those chapters. So, Basi Ligani, the mimer that the Friedrich Rebbe left, but Bati Ligani. And that's what the Chassidim study on this day. So, one of the ideas in that ma'amar is that there's something called shtut. Shtut means folly, something foolish, right? So the Talmud says, "Ein adam chotei ela im ken nichnas bo ruach shtut." A person does not do a transgression unless he's got this folly, this foolish idea in his mind. And what's the foolish idea? The foolish idea is that I can, so to speak, go into a bubble and do what I want, and it's not going to affect anything else. I'll come out of the bubble 24 hours later, have my party or whatever it is, and everything will just carry on as it was. And that's the folly. That's the foolishness. We think sometimes, we know that we're doing something that's not right, but it's okay. I'm in a bubble. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to make a big change in my life, and so on. But it's not true. Everything, we are so connected. We are so wired with the world. The whole world is interconnected. Like Rav Shlomo says in one of the teachings we learned one morning, a mother and a father get up and their children get up, and they start screaming at the kids. And at the other end of the world, somebody's committing a murder. You think there's no connection? He says there's absolutely, it's connected. On the other hand, you get up in the morning and you give your children a beautiful good morning, and I love you, and it's full of positive energy. On the other end of the world, two people who were in an argument are making peace. And we're very, very much interconnected with each other.
It's funny. I was listening to you yesterday. Somebody was saying, or 2 days ago, how fast the week went.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it too. And Yerushalayim is exceptionally fast.
Mm-hmm.
So this is
One Friday in the mikveh, I hear this guy say, there was no week. It was Shabbos yesterday and it's Shabbos again.
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
What
feels.
you were saying, when was this verse said?
What?
This
The
approach
mimer?
this approach that anything that we do sends energy to get everywhere else in the world connects. Is how that
It's
far back does it go?
ancient.
It became very popular among the counterculture about energy and that kind of thing. But you're saying this goes way
It's
back,
ancient, yeah.
not recent.
So let's learn in honor of his memory. And
So this book about Basi Lagani was written by the Priya Project.
it's available in English. You can listen to it online. So we stopped yesterday on what page? Nicole's not here to tell me. 91? I thought so, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So just to finish off that thought from before. So there's shtut, there's the shtut of there's the foolishness of this world, the foolishness of evil, and there's also shtut kedusha. There's the foolishness of holiness, and the foolishness of holiness, in other words, just like that same foolishness that, oh, I'm going to go and do something negative, I'm going to go and do a transgression, and nothing's going to stop me. The opposite of that is the foolishness of holiness, which is saying, as much as it doesn't look like I stand a chance, I'm going to live my life in a way of Kedusha.
That's foolish.
It's a foolishness, it's not logical. When he came to America and they told him, you're not going to be able to accomplish what you did in Russia. He said, America's no different. And by the way, I think it was the first day that he was there, he sent one of his Hasidim to be a shliach in Pennsylvania somewhere, or Connecticut maybe. And this shliach arrives, and there happened to be a meeting of the leaders of the Jewish community taking place that night. He walked into the meeting. He said, the Rebbe sent me to open up a Jewish school. And the next morning, they had a Jewish school open. It's like, who heard of such a thing, you know?
This is the Priya Project.
Yeah. Like, you know, you walk into a town, and you know that there's got to be a Jewish kid at school. And the next morning, there's already classes taking place. What budget? No budget, no money, nothing, never mind. We got to learn Torah. The rest will do. The rest will happen. And I said, do what you need to do, Hashem will help you. Where did you grow up?
Michigan.
Michigan. That's in Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
Or Detroit's in Michigan?
Pretty random. Didn't expect that.
Which city?
Southfield.
Is that near Dearborn?
No.
No, thank God. You know what's going on there, eh? The Arabs have taken that over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so page 91. You know, like, I'm sharing this with you because there's nothing to show off about. This whole yeshiva, Simchat Shlomo, how did it come about? It wasn't planned. If you would have come to me 5 minutes before and said, oh, I heard you're opening a yeshiva, I'd say you're crazy. But what happened was, is that one night I was about to leave on one of my trips, and one of the young men who had just done their wedding a month before came to say goodbye. And we were talking about, and by the way, it's this time of year, and it's like we're right now in our bat mitzvah year. This is our 12th year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
You said your bat mitzvah?
the bat mitzvah year of the yeshiva.
12 years?
Yeah. And this young, so I am asking him, so what are you going to do now? So he says, well, you'd like to go learn over there, but you can't do this. And anyway, we spoke, we said goodbye. And I'm sitting upstairs in my office and looking at the ceiling, and these words come down, open the yeshiva. Yeah, that box is not in a good place.
In Yiddish?
This time it was in English, yeah. Put it on the floor. Yeah, that's better. Anyway, And Baruch Hashem, 2 weeks later, we were open.
No way.
2 weeks later, we were open. And so when people ask me, like, okay, so you got the message to open the yeshiva, but why didn't somebody else get it? So I say because probably Hashem was looking for somebody who wasn't going to ask to see the business plan. And that's you understand. That's how we were raised. Like, you got to do it, you do it. And Baruch Hashem. Okay, we're on page 91. So we did these 2 paragraphs yesterday, but still, I'm gonna reread this starting on the 3rd line. I'm gonna reread these 2 paragraphs.
Which paragraph?
Starting on the 3rd line. אני אומר לכם משהו עמוק מאוד. I'm telling you something very deep. אולי זה יישמע לכם פשוט, it might sound simple to you. כתוב בפסוק, it says in the Torah, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, you should love your fellow like you love yourself. מי זה רעך? Who is this fellow of yours, this friend of yours, so to speak? זה האדם שעומד לידך, is the person who's next to you right now. ותפתחו את לבכם, open your hearts. I think my wife is there. Yeah. Open your hearts. הקדוש ברוך הוא לא דורש מאיתנו שנאהוב את כל העולם לעולמים. God is not asking us, here come, you can share with me. Hashem is not asking us to love the whole world forever. Okay? You can sit here if you want to look in. Hashem is not asking us to love the whole world forever, right? התורה אומרת שכל מה שאנחנו צריכים לעשות הוא לפתוח את כל הלב שלנו לכל אחד שאנחנו פוגשים. The Torah is simply asking us to open our hearts to every person that we meet. במשך אותו רגע, for that moment that you meet them, שפוגשים אותו. והלוואי שהיינו זוכים להגיע לזה. And הלוואי, how do you say הלוואי? If only. If only that we would merit to do this. אתם מבינים כמה זה עמוק? Do you realize how deep this is? הקדוש ברוך הוא לא דורש ממני לאהוב אותך לעולמים. God is not asking me to love you forever. אולי אני לא כל כך מחבב אותך. Maybe I don't even really appreciate you so much. אנחנו לא משדרים באותו גל בכלל. We might not even be on the same wavelength. הנשמות שלנו, our souls, אפילו ששתיהן חלק אלוקה ממעל, even though both of them are parts of Hashem from above, הן לא קשורות כל כך אחת לשנייה. Our souls are not necessarily so connected. אלא שבאותו רגע שאתה עומד לפניי, but at that moment that you're in front of me, אני צריך לפתוח לך את שערי הלב שלי. I have to open the gates of my heart to you. Okay, so this is related to, you all know what Hashgacha Pratit means? Divine providence, right? Divine providence. What does divine providence mean? It means that nothing happens by chance. Everything is part of God's consciousness. If God didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen. Okay? That's a heavy statement, by the way, but we're not going to go into the heaviness of it right now. But basically, it means that every person that you meet, it's by divine providence that you now met this person. The people that are on the bus with you, the people that you see in the street, the people that are sitting here together and learning Torah together at this moment, is not by chance. To us, from our mundane perspective, it looks like that it's by chance, but it's not. It's not. It's happening because Hashem wanted it to happen right now. Okay? So, who your children are, who your parents are, who your friends are, who you got married to, where you happen to be in the world right now, there's something that each of us is meant to accomplish at this moment. in this encounter. There's a Mishnah at the end of Masechet Brachot that says, "Mishikilkilu haminim," that when the Apikorsim, the non-believers, were making a lot of trouble. Now, in those days, the non-believers were not people who didn't believe that there's a God. They believed that, yes, there's a God, that God created the world, but that he has better things to do than to be involved with the world. So he handed it over to a couple of zodiacs, etc., whatever it might be. Like, he has a management system. He has an app. Okay, God has an app, and put the world on his app, and that he's busy with other things, right? And our belief is that no, Hashem is present in everything that's happening all the time. Like, to believe just that there was nothing and then the God created the world, you don't have to be such a huge, brilliant, pure person to be able to believe that. But to believe that God is present in the world here, right now, no less than he was before creation, that's what belief is about. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, to believe that God is one. Haya hoveh v'yihiyeh ke'echad, past, present, and future, all at the same time, at every moment. In other words, that something which is beyond our concept, because we're living in a domain of time and space. That's what belief is about. Okay. So these Epicurus were saying that God is somewhere up there in heaven. It's not really down over here. So the rabbis, to counter that, one of the things that they did is that when we say hello to each other, we're to say hello using God's name. How do we say hello using God's name?
Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom. Shalom is one of God's names. You're actually not supposed to use that word when you're in the bathroom, because it's one of the holy names. It's a hard name to live with, I tell you that much. But I'm serious. I have experience.
What do you mean it's our name to live with?
It's exactly what I said.
Someone who's named it.
Yes.
Ah.
So what does it mean that when you say shalom to somebody, how does that counter the idea that if let's say you're meeting somebody who doesn't believe that God is present here in the world, and you say shalom to them, how does that counter what they believe, besides you saying what you believe? So the thing is that the word shalom, the root of shalom is what?
Shalom.
Shalem, complete, whole, right? In the Holy of Holies, we had the Aron HaKodesh, right? We had the Holy Ark, which contains the tablets, right? The complete ones and the broken ones. And when God spoke to Moshe, where would the voice emanate from?
Between the two
From between the two cherubim, from between the two kruvim. In other words, what's being expressed here is that the divine presence emanates from the space between two people.
facing each other.
Facing each other.
Say that again.
That the divine presence manifests itself in the space between two people facing each other. Right? The Medrash says that the Kruvim, they were animate, and when our relationship with Hashem was not good, they didn't look at each other. They looked away from each other. But when they were looking at each other, that was a symbol that our relationship with Hashem was good. But Hashem is showing us his relationship being positive with us. How is he showing it to us? By the image of us being face to face. Okay. So, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor like you love yourself, right? What Rav Shlomo is saying over here is that at that moment that you're encountering somebody, right, that is a moment to make the reality of Hashem really true here in this world. Okay? That is a moment to make the completeness, the wholeness, the unity, the oneness of Hashem a real truth in this world. And when the convert comes to Hillel and he says to him, convert me on the condition that you teach me the entire Torah while I'm standing on one foot, right? What does Hillel say to him? Hillel says to him, that which is hateful to you, don't do to others. That's the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Can you get the door, please?
Yeah.
And if Judy's in the kitchen, call her. It's an old friend from Montreal is walking in. Haven't seen there. and are they coming in?
Doing the mat.
Are they doing the mat? Hi, Marilyn. Welcome. Come have a seat. Wasn't somebody with you outside?
Yes, but she will come later.
Okay.
That's my future daughter-in-law.
Yeah, we know. Very good. Well,
That's love.
Toda.
okay, sure. So Marilyn came. Her son is getting married at the end of the month. We're friends from Montreal, but she's originally from Winnipeg, also in Canada.
Our reach is friendliest place
Yeah.
in Canada.
Where's Well, let me just finish the talk, okay? So when he says to the convert, that which is hateful to you, don't do to others. That's a commentary on love your neighbor like you love yourself. Like, in other words, what does it mean, love your neighbor like you love yourself? What are you supposed to do? Like, you're supposed to, here, jump on them and say, hey, let me brush your teeth because I brushed my teeth this morning, or it's so Hillel says, like, practically speaking, there's something that you wouldn't want someone to do to you, don't do it to them. And that's a practical interpretation of love your neighbor like you love yourself. But he says that's the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Now, most of the world forgot those last few words, that the rest is commentary. When we say the rest is commentary, that means that's also how you put it into practice. But in any case, the idea is that the whole Torah is about the unity and the oneness of Hashem, and we have to live it. We have to live it in the way we interact with each other. Right? So Rav Shlomo was saying that we have to love your neighbor like you love yourself. To most people, and some of you already know this, like, for example, if I were to ask you, I've done this in many groups, I say, I'm going to start counting, and when I get beyond the number of the people that you love, put your hand down. Okay? So I'm going to start counting. And if I'm going to say one, and if there's one person you love, keep your hand up, okay? When I get to a number beyond, you understand what I want you to do? When I get to a number beyond the number of people that you love, put your hand down, okay? I'll go slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is awesome. 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, you guys are really holy. In most places that I've done this, by the time I get to the number 7 or 8, there's only 3 or 4 hands up. And I'm not joking. Yeah, of course, but to most people, like, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Like, like, what are you talking about? I'm not even going to say hello to this guy, right? Right? So Rav Shlomo is giving something very, very practical over here, and he's saying, is the person that's next to you right now. Don't worry about loving. And usually, and another question I would ask people is, think of somebody that you really love, okay? Or that you love. And then I would ask, is that person in the room now? The people that you guys just thought about, were they in the room?
No.
Sure hope so.
I sure hope so. Okay. But most people will tell you that the person they thought about is not here right now. That's very telling. Because you know what? If they're not here, then I don't have to do anything for them right now.
Uh-huh.
Okay? It makes it easy, right? To love somebody from far, right? So the whole point is that, and this is what Reb Shlomo says, it sounds simple, but it's not. It's the person that's next to you right now. This is the person that you got to open your heart to them. Yeah.
What does it mean when somebody makes you uncomfortable?
You're asking a good question. Not just what does it mean, but what do you do then? Okay. Now the word re'acha I mentioned yesterday. The root of the word re'acha is the same two letters is re'ah, which means friend, and also ra, which means evil. Right. So what do you do when you meet somebody that's confronting you in not such a pleasant way, right? How do you handle that? There's no one easy answer. Sometimes you just have to shut your mouth and ignore it. Okay. But if you think about, wait a minute, this is also by divine providence, right? So it's worth spending some time to figure out what's going on, what's the aura that I'm putting around myself that might be inviting this kind of a thing. Okay. You know, over here in Israel, the bus drivers are totally wired. And I'll tell you why I say that.
What do you mean wired?
They're connected. So we were here. When our daughter was getting married. So we had, Simcha and Leah basically went ahead. They printed up invitations. They said they're getting married on the roof of Kever David, and they handed us the invitation. They said, "Now go ahead, find the catering place and this and that and so on." So Judy and I arrived like about 3 or 4 weeks before the wedding, and we had to go find a place. We finally found a place. Then we found out it wasn't good. We had to find another place, and then we had all these invitations to deliver, and the mail system over here is not so great, and and I had to go to different places, and it was summertime, and sometimes I'd be walking and I'd see the bus coming to the bus stop, and I would run to the bus stop, and the bus driver saw me coming, and just as I was about to get on the bus, he'd shut the door on my nose and take off. And I'd sit down there, really upset and so on. And it happened often enough that finally I began to realize, wait a minute, what's this all about? And I would realize that I left the house with the attitude of, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. And it was all about what I'm going to do. And like the bus driver is wired, gets a message, here comes that jerk, shut the door on his face. and then when I was I'd sit down and do a little bit of tshuva and so on, the next bus driver would arrive, he'd open the door, shalom, mashlomcha, how are you? And so on. Same thing happens in the shuk, same thing happens all over the place over here. You've had the experience? As you can tell on your face, look around, you see, I'm not the only one who's had the experience, okay? So it's all divine providence. And what Ben is asking, okay, so what do you do when you meet somebody that's uncomfortable and so on? So there could be any number of answers, but one of them could very well be is that you're being confronted because you're walking around with this haughty air around you. And And the other person who's like, so to speak, giving me a slap in the face, he might not have any idea as to why he's doing it. He's going to have to deal with that issue himself. Like, why did he treat me that way? But in the meantime, I have to understand, I have to know that it wasn't for naught. It wasn't just stam kacha. And if I don't pay attention to it, then the next bus driver is not going to let me on the bus either.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I really like that says, like, every person you meet in your life is either a blessing or a lesson. So if they don't bring you joy, or like if they're not like a very apparent blessing, then it's like time to see what lesson are they trying to deliver, because they're only the medium.
Exactly.
And it's funny because a few years ago there was someone in my life who was very difficult, and whenever I moved a lot of times in my life, and whenever I move, I find like another replica of like that person and another person. And like until I learned to like refine my character to not let it upset me, like
right.
This person had to be almost like reincarnated in like different people. And once I recognized it, it was like boom.
Are they here now?
No, not in the room.
Let's beat them up.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting how like
Yeah.
keep on meeting those people until we learn our lesson.
Exactly. That's exactly the whole point over here. That it's nothing's by chance, and sometimes it's to add to that. Okay. It's coming up in the you can find it in the Sefer Baal Shem Tov al Torah, and the Zohar says that not this week, in 2 weeks it's going to be Parshat Mishpatim, and it said, the verse over there says Ve'ela Mishpatim, these are the laws that you should put before the people, and it talks about all kinds of business law and all kinds of laws of crimes and so on. And the Zohar says that this is the secret of reincarnations. So the Maggid asked the Baal Shem Tov, what does this mean? The Baal Shem Tov said, go tomorrow to the forest. You remember that? And right there, go by the river and hide yourself and just observe. Don't mix into anything that you see. Just go and observe, and then at the end of the day, come back and tell me what happened. So he goes, and at some point, there's this well-dressed merchant riding on a nice horse, comes along. He sees the river. It's a nice warm day. He decides to stop, washes himself up a little bit, takes out some of his food, and then he's got his money pouch, and he puts it under a bush and takes a little nap. Wakes up from his nap, he gets back on his horse, and he leaves. I forgot about the money pouch. A few minutes later, another guy comes along. He also stops at the river, washes his face, eats a little bit, and he's sitting around and he's looking, and he says, "Whoa, look at that!" Finds the money pouch under the bush. He's very happy, picks it up, and he leaves. A few minutes later, this old guy, this poor schlepper with a little bag on his back, he comes and he washes himself up, takes out a piece of dry bread, and he's eating. And the first guy, the one who lost the money, comes back charging, and he's looking for the money. He doesn't see it. He sees the old man. He says, "Where's my money?" And the old man says, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he says, "You liar, you thief!" And he starts beating him and beating him and beating him, and till he's almost dead, And finally, he gets back on his horse and he leaves. The old man slowly begins to recuperate, washes up his wounds, and he gets himself up and he leaves. At the end of the day, the Maggid comes back to the Baal Shem Tov and he tells him everything that he saw. And he says, "Okay, so what was this all about?" So he says, "What happened is like this. Reuven and Shimon, in a previous lifetime, they had a dispute. Reuven said that Shimon owes him money. Shimon said he doesn't owe him the money. And they went to court. in any case, Shimon got away without paying, but the reality was that Shimon owed him the money. So these two souls came back to this world, and the guy that lost the money, that was Shimon. The guy that found the money, that was Reuben. So Reuben finally got his money back. So he says, and what about the old man? He was the judge.
He was
He was the judge
the judge.
who had delivered a faulty decision. Okay, so now I'll give you a little bit of a warning. If somebody comes along in your life and says, I'm a Kabbalist and let me tell you about your past lifetimes, tell them, please, we'll find somebody else not interested. The real Kabbalists, Mayor Becerra once told me, the real Kabbalists don't talk. And anybody that walks around and says, I can tell you about your past lifetime, this and that, they might say something that sounds very interesting, but you're here now, you're living now, and like Ayala said, it's either, repeat that quote.
Everyone that comes in, that enters your life is either a blessing or a lesson.
Either a blessing or a lesson. Instead, like, for example, we're living through some pretty tough times now, and even our so-called friends are turning against us, and we got to think about what's the lesson, and the lesson is not what's their agenda. We have our sources, we have our holy books, we have so on. We got to figure out what's the lesson that we need to take. But it's all and in fact the lesson is a blessing too, right? Because if you wouldn't have the lesson, then you wouldn't make any progress. So the point that Rav Shlomo is making over here is like plain and simple. You meet somebody, it's a moment that you can make the truth of God be real here in this world. Okay. So, I want you to know another very deep thing. We're just the paragraph halfway past the page, halfway down the page. The way I think about God is usually a reflection of the way I think about myself. אם אני בטוח שאני מגושם, אולי עליך אני יכול לעבוד, אבל אני באמת מרגיש שהאלוקים שלי הוא גם לא משהו. If I think that I'm just a totally attached to my mundane reality, to my physical reality, that I'm just a physical being, that if I think I don't really have any connection to a higher self, okay? So maybe I can fool you into thinking that I'm a spiritual person or whatever it is, right? But the truth is, I don't really have a very high opinion about God either. Because if you don't have a good opinion about yourself, you probably don't have a good opinion about God. דבר אחד אני יודע, I know one thing. כי בצלם אלוקים ברא את האדם. It says in the Torah that man is created in the image of God. אבל אם אני מבין שהאלוקים שלי הוא ממש מרומם, but if I really understand that my God is really supernal, אז כנראה שגם בי יש חלק הזה. That means that I too have something supernal in me, otherwise I would never imagine that. Okay? אם אני תואם אפילו במעט איך שהקדוש ברוך הוא קודש קודשים, if I taste even a little bit that God is the Holy of Holies, המושלם שבמושלמים, the most complete of all complete, זה אומר שגם בי יש חלק כזה. That means that I too have that dimension. I too have that aspect. Okay. So going back to what we were saying before, and still related to the question that Ben asked. So the Baal HaTanya talks about how do you love everybody? Honestly, can you really love everybody? And basically, this is in chapter 32 in the Tanya. Basically, what he says over there is like this. The question is, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as, a physical being, and who consumes so much and so much food, and so on, and has these needs and those needs and those needs? Or do you see yourself primarily as your neshama? That I am primarily a soul, and my soul is a part of Hashem. When you learn to see yourself that way, then you will also be able to see others that way. And when you can see that that this person is also in the image of God, just like you are, then you'll be able to love that person. Because it's like the Tzemach Tzedek gives this example. Let's say you're slicing some bread and you weren't careful and you sort of cut your finger a little bit. Would it make any sense for you to take the knife from the hand that was holding the knife and transfer it to the other hand and say, now go ahead and take revenge against the hand that cut you? You'd say, you're crazy. We're one body, right? We're one body. So when you learn to realize that there's this supernal aspect of your being, that you have it, that you're primarily a neshama, and that means that you're connected with your source, because the source of the neshama is in God. It's a part of Hashem. Then you can see the other person as being that way too, and that we're part of the same one Father. We're part of the same one body. It's true, you might be the brain of, connected more to the brain, and I might be more connected to the toes, but it's still the same body, right? And even in sciences today, we mentioned this yesterday, right? It's just science is beginning to see these things clearly too. Every cell in your body has the exact same genetic code. True, doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, right? So good. So I'm a toe, but we have the same genetic code. You're the brain. Okay, same genetic code. I'm a water carrier. You're teaching classes, but we're one. So you happen to be you're doing that, and that's your task in the world, and I'm doing this, and that's my task in the world, and we're really one. And that's the whole idea. We have to realize that the person who's sitting next to you right now, this is the person with whom you can right this moment make the reality of Hashem something real in the world. So we'll stop over here for today. B'ezrat Hashem, yeah. 7:30 tonight, Shlomo Kentz is here. If you want a seat, you have to be here by 7:15.
Who's here?
Shlomo Kentz. Okay. And what else should I tell you? Have a good Shabbos. See you tomorrow, God
What is he
willing.
speaking about?
Parsha.
Every
Tomorrow
week.
too?
Yeah, for the next couple of months.